Answer Intelligence, a read-aloud summary based on the book by Dr. Brian Glibkowski. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a quiet room, late at night. The day is finished. The noise has faded. The world is finally still. And in that stillness, a simple truth begins to surface. Much of life turns on questions. What should I do? Why did this happen? How do I move forward? For most of our lives, we are told that the power is in the question. Great thinkers ask great questions. Teachers encourage curiosity. Books celebrate leaders who know exactly what to ask. And because of that, we spend years learning how to ask better questions. But this book explores a different idea, a quieter idea. Questions open the door. Answers decide what happens next. A question creates possibility. An answer creates understanding, or confusion, clarity, or silence. And yet, strangely, almost no one ever teaches us how to answer well. The story behind this idea begins many years ago with a young researcher named Dr. Brian Glibkowski. Early in his career, he traveled from Chicago to Austin, Texas. He had spent months studying leadership and management inside a growing software company. His research was careful, detailed, supported by real data. When he arrived to present his findings, he was confident. Each executive in the room received a thick binder. Inside were charts, explanations, conclusions. He stood up, and he began to speak. At first, everything seemed normal, but slowly something changed. The executives were polite, but their attention drifted away. Their eyes were in the room. Their minds were not. One checked a phone, another looked at a watch. Someone flipped through the binder without interest. By the time the presentation ended, the outcome was obvious. Those binders would soon sit on a shelf and gather dust. The research had not failed. The answers had failed. That moment stayed with him for years, and it led him to a deeper question. Not what should I say, but something much more important. What makes an answer land? Why do some answers stay with us, while others disappear the moment they're spoken? The search for that answer led somewhere unexpected. To understand powerful answers, Glibkowski and his colleagues studied teachers. But not ordinary teachers, and they studied some of the best golf instructors in the United States. These were people who had spent decades teaching complicated physical movements to beginners, to weekend players, even to professionals. When the researchers listened carefully to these instructors, they noticed something fascinating. The instructors did not explain things in just one way. They moved between different kinds of explanations. Sometimes they used logic, sometimes they used images, sometimes stories, sometimes clear instructions. They switched styles naturally, depending on what the student needed in that moment. Slowly, a pattern appeared. There were not endless kinds of answers. There were 6, and once you see them, you begin to notice them everywhere. To understand the 6 answers, we first need to understand 3 kinds of questions. Most questions in life fall into one of 3 groups. What questions? What is this? What does it mean? Why questions? Why does this matter? Why does this happen? And how questions? How does this work? How do I do it? Each type of question can be answered in 2 different ways. One logical, one human. Together, they form a simple map. A map of 6 answers: concept, metaphor, theory, story, procedure, action. It sounds simple, but this small framework quietly explains why some communication works and why some fails. Let us walk through them slowly, because this is the heart of everything. First, what questions? When someone asks what, they are missing basic understanding. They need clarity. The first answer type that provides clarity is the concept. A concept defines an idea. It breaks the idea into parts. It gives structure. For example, negotiation can be explained like this. Integrative negotiation means both sides search for solutions that benefit everyone involved. That definition organizes the idea. But sometimes a definition is not enough. Sometimes people need an image. That is where the metaphor appears. A metaphor connects something new to something familiar. At one point, Glibkowski described a partnership like this. He said, "Our partnership is like a three-legged stool. Remove one leg, and the stool cannot stand." The executive understood instantly. Days later, that executive used the same metaphor with someone else. The image had stuck. Concept explains, metaphor sticks. Now we move to why questions. Why questions search for cause, they search for meaning. The first answer here is theory. A theory explains cause and effect. For example, research shows something interesting. People perform much better when they set specific, difficult goals, compared to vague goals like do your best. That is a theory, logical, clear, structured. But theory alone can feel cold. This is where story becomes powerful. A story shows cause and effect through human experience. Glibkowski often tells a story about his young son. His son was playing indoor soccer. At first, the boy was nervous. He stayed away from the other kids. Many parents told their children the same thing. Just do your best. But Glibkowski gave his son a specific goal. Kick the ball high enough to hit a line on the wall. Week after week, they practiced. Eventually, the boy joined the other kids. And one day, another parent walked over and said quietly, "Your son has a strong leg." When people hear this story, something changes. They stop analyzing and they start imagining. Theory explains why something works. Story shows what it feels like when it works. Now we arrive at how questions appear when someone is ready to act, but they do not know where to begin. The first answer here is procedure. A procedure is a series of steps. For example, first understand what both sides need. Second, generate possible solutions. Third, choose the option where both sides benefit most. Step by step, the fog disappears. But sometimes people need something even simpler. A single move, that is action. An action is one clear behavior. For example, during a presentation, if someone asks an important question, press the letter B on the keyboard. The screen turns black. The slides disappear. The attention of the room returns to the conversation. One small action can transform a moment. Procedure gives direction. Action creates movement. Now the 6 answers are visible. Concept, metaphor, theory, story, procedure, action. But here is the discovery that changes everything. Most people use only one or two of these answers. Analytical thinkers use concepts and theories. Storytellers rely on stories and metaphors. Practical people jump straight to procedures and actions. None of these styles are wrong, but each one reaches only part of the listener. True communication requires flexibility, the ability to move between all 6 answers. This is what the book calls answer intelligence, or simply AQ. The book describes 5 habits that develop this skill. First, prepare multiple answers. Before an important conversation, think about all 6 forms. What is the concept? What metaphor explains it? What theory supports it? What story illustrates it? What procedure solves it? What action begins it? Preparation creates flexibility. Second, answer twice. Give the logical explanation and the human story, the theory, and the experience. Logic speaks to the mind, story speaks to the heart. Together, they create understanding. Third, layer answers together. Concept plus metaphor, theory plus story, procedure plus action. When answers reinforce each other, belief grows stronger. Fourth, adapt to your listener. Some people want data, some want emotion, Some want clear steps. Meet them where they are. Then expand the explanation. Fifth, read the moment. Even a brilliant answer can fail in the wrong context. A long explanation may overwhelm someone in crisis. A short answer may feel cold in an emotional moment. Good answers match the emotional state of the room. These ideas appear everywhere. In job interviews, in leadership, in teaching, in sales. The strongest candidates do not just list qualifications. They tell a story. They explain their reasoning. They describe the actions they would take. They present a complete picture, not just information, but understanding. At its deepest level, this book introduces a different kind of intelligence. We know about IQ, the intelligence of logic. We know about emotional intelligence, the intelligence of feelings. But there is another form. Answer intelligence, the ability to turn knowledge into words that move another person. Words that clarify, words that connect, words that inspire action. Because life is full of moments when someone asks you a question. A colleague, a friend, a stranger, or the quiet voice inside your own mind. What should I do? Why is this happening? How do I begin? In those moments, the quality of your answers shapes what happens next. So tonight, as the world grows quiet, remember this simple map. When someone asks what, give a concept or a metaphor. When someone asks why, give a theory or a story. When someone asks how, give a procedure or an action. 6 answers, 1 skill, a lifetime to practice. If you remember only one thing from this book, remember this. Do not give just one answer. Give 2. Logic and humanity. The explanation and the story, the plan, and the first step. When both the mind and the heart understand, your answer will not just be heard, it will be remembered.
Thank you for watching. If this content resonated with you, I would appreciate your likes and comments, which help this reach more people who might find it useful.